You're not cursed. You're not doomed to keep repeating the same heartbreak, the same fights, the same spiral of regret. What you're experiencing isn't bad luck. It's a pattern, a reflection, a message from the parts of you you've disowned. The parts that were shamed, ignored, or labeled too much when you were young. These parts didn't disappear. They went underground. And now they show up in your triggers, your relationships, your self-sabotage, begging to be seen, not punished. This is the nature of the shadow. It doesn't die, it disguises itself. It repeats until it's recognized. And it's not trying to ruin your life, it's trying to heal it. Shadow work is the process of turning toward what you've run from. Not to drown in it, but to reclaim the pieces of you buried beneath fear and shame. The moment you stop running, the healing begins. Because what we repress controls us, but what we meet with compassion transforms us. Just a gentle reminder before we begin, this content is here to support, not replace your mental health journey. If you're in pain or need deeper help, please reach out to a therapist or professional who can walk with you. The shadow is not evil. It's not your enemy. It's simply the part of you that was told it wasn't allowed to exist. It holds every emotion, impulse, thought, or truth that someone, a parent, a culture, a religion, a teacher, told you was too much, too selfish, too emotional, or not enough. It contains not only what's dark, but also what's been denied. Your anger, your wildness, your grief, your sexuality, your power, even your joy. We form our shadow in childhood. We adapt to survive because survival means belonging. If crying got you punished, you learned to smile through pain. If being bold got you rejected, you learned to shrink. If asking for your needs brought shame, you stopped asking altogether. Bit by bit, you split. You kept the parts that earned love and hid the parts that threatened it. That hiding didn't mean those parts disappeared. They just went unconscious. The shadow doesn't die. It waits. And it doesn't stay buried forever. It leaks. Through our triggers, our fears, our projections, our compulsions. Ever snap at someone and realize later it wasn't about them? That was your shadow speaking. Ever sabotage something good, then feel shame without knowing why? That's the shadow again. The unhealed part of you recreating what it knows, even when it hurts. This is the paradox. The shadow is made from repression, but it survives through repetition. What we suppress internally, we eventually act out externally. Not because we're broken, but because the psyche longs for wholeness. The shadow's goal isn't destruction. It's reintegration. It wants to be seen. It wants to be met. It wants to come home. That's why shadow work isn't about getting rid of anything. It's about reclaiming it. You are not just a curated version of yourself you present to the world, the polite, strong, capable one. You're also the hidden one, the angry child, the jealous friend, the frightened lover, the grieving soul. Owning your shadow means saying, yes, this is me too. I won't exile you anymore. If you don't do this consciously, the shadow will act out unconsciously. It will pick partners that mirror your old wounds. It will lash out when you feel too vulnerable. It will numb you with addiction or perfectionism or rage. It's not punishing you. It's trying to get your attention. Until you meet what's in the dark, it will keep interrupting the light. But here's the deeper truth. Your shadow isn't just pain. It's potential. What you've buried includes your boldness, your creativity, your desire, your raw aliveness. Repression flattens the psyche. Integration brings it back to life. When you reclaim your shadow, you don't become someone worse. You become someone whole. This is the beginning of shadow work. Not analyzing your flaws, not drowning in shame, but getting curious about your reactions, following your projections, watching where you resist, and asking, what part of me have I denied? What part of me needs to be brought back into the light? That question is the gateway to transformation. You might think, why does this keep happening to me? The same heartbreak, the same self-sabotage, the same arguments in different relationships, different jobs, different seasons of life. It can feel like punishment, like you're stuck or broken. But you're not. Repetition isn't a curse, it's a signal, a flare from the unconscious. It's your shadow trying to be seen through the patterns you can't seem to escape. The psyche is brilliant and stubborn. It doesn't forget what hasn't been resolved. If you weren't allowed to express anger as a child, your adult self might explode unexpectedly or suppress rage until it turns inward as depression. If love was conditional growing up, you may now chase emotionally unavailable people, not because you enjoy the pain, but because your unconscious is trying to finish the story, to finally feel wanted, seen, safe. Repetition is the mind reenacting the wound with the hope of healing it, but without awareness it just keeps cycling. You end up attracting what you're trying to escape, not because you're weak, because your inner system is seeking completion. It's trying to rewrite the old pain with a new ending. The problem is, without conscious shadow work, you often choose characters and situations that guarantee the same pain, not the resolution. This is why we say the trigger is the teacher. The pattern is the portal. Every painful repeat is asking, are you willing to see what part of you hasn't been met yet? The point isn't to shame yourself. It's to get curious. What belief lives beneath the pattern? I'm not lovable. I don't deserve to be heard. If I'm not perfect, I'll be abandoned. These beliefs live in the shadow. They recreate your world until they're seen. And here's where many people get stuck. They try to fix the pattern externally, change jobs, leave partners, control outcomes. But without doing the inner work, the pattern reforms. It's not about the outer details. It's about the inner loop. And you're not cursed to repeat it. You're being invited to break it. And that doesn't begin with blame. It begins with compassion, honesty, and a willingness to feel what's been buried. Shadow work is how you exit the loop, by naming your wounds, by taking responsibility for your part, not to blame yourself, but to empower yourself. Because when you bring the unconscious into the conscious, it loses its grip. You stop reacting and you start responding. You stop repeating and you start rewriting. Not overnight, but over time with clarity and courage. Think of every painful cycle as a breadcrumb, leading you not into shame, but toward self-integration. Your anger isn't the enemy. Your codependency isn't a defect. Your avoidance, your numbness, your panic, they're all symptoms of something deeper. And when you finally see them, not as flaws, but as fragments, you can begin to reclaim them. That's when transformation happens. Not when the pattern ends on its own, but when you face the root and tend to it. When you stop saying, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what in me needs to be healed? Repetition becomes revelation. And from that place, freedom begins. We live in a culture obsessed with fixing. Fix your flaws, fix your mindset, fix your life. But shadow work doesn't work that way. The shadow isn't something to be fixed, like a broken appliance. It's not a glitch in your programming, it's part of your humanity. And trying to fix it only reinforces the very message that created it in the first place. This part of me is wrong. Shadow work isn't about perfection. It's about presence. To do shadow work is to turn toward the parts of yourself you were taught to deny, the jealousy you pretend you don't feel, the judgment you secretly hold, the anger that simmers beneath your smile, the fear of being seen without the mask. Facing the shadow means sitting with these truths, not because you're bad or broken, but because these are parts of you that deserve to be known, not hidden. When we avoid these emotions, they control us. The unacknowledged envy poisons relationships. The unspoken rage turns into self-hate. The repressed fear of intimacy becomes detachment or sabotage. What we push down doesn't die. It becomes the lens through which we see and react to the world. But the moment we face these parts with honesty and compassion, they begin to loosen their grip. This is not easy work. It's raw. It requires the courage to admit, I've been pretending I'm fine, pretending I don't care, pretending I'm in control. But behind every mask is a truth, and behind every truth is a need. to be heard, held, healed. Shadow work asks, can you let these parts speak without silencing them or fixing them? Can you hold them like you would a frightened child, with firmness and love? The irony is, when we stop trying to fix the shadow, it starts to transform. Not because we forced it, but because we finally gave it what it needed: attention, acceptance, understanding. Like any wound, the shadow doesn't heal through shame or exile. It heals through exposure to light, not harsh light that judges, but warm light that sees. Ownership is power. The moment you say, yes, this is a part of me, you reclaim the energy that was being spent on repression. You stop being at war with yourself. And in that space of inner peace, you gain choice. You don't have to act out the jealousy, but you no longer have to pretend it's not there. That freedom to feel without being controlled is what integration looks like. This is the deeper purpose of shadow work, not to erase darkness, but to become whole. Wholeness includes the parts you want to show the world and the parts you were told to hide. You are both light and shadow, and pretending otherwise only deepens the division inside. Integration means no longer exiling parts of yourself to be accepted by others. It means accepting yourself fully so that you stop betraying who you are. So no, shadow work isn't about fixing yourself. It's about facing yourself bravely, tenderly, completely. And in that honest reflection, you begin to see you're not a problem to be solved. You're a person to be understood. And the more you understand your shadow, the less power it has to unconsciously run your life. Shadow work can feel like stepping into a dark forest without a map. But the goal isn't to get lost in the dark, it's to bring light into it. And like any deep emotional work, safety matters. You're not just dealing with ideas, you're touching memories, identities, pain, shame. If you rush in unprepared, you risk re-traumatizing instead of healing. So before anything else, understand this. Shadow work must be done slowly, gently, and with care. A safe entry point is self-inquiry. Ask yourself, what am I avoiding? What makes me uncomfortable about others? What emotions do I try hardest not to feel? These questions open the door, not to criticize yourself, but to see yourself more clearly. The shadow reveals itself in subtle ways, the things that make your stomach tighten, the people you can't stand, the behaviors you condemn in others. All of these are clues pointing back to what you haven't yet made peace with in yourself. Projection tracking is another key tool. We don't just project what we dislike, we also project what we long for. If you envy someone's boldness, ask yourself where you've suppressed your own. If you judge someone's sensitivity, explore your relationship to your own vulnerability. The shadow hides in both our rejections and our obsessions. Watching your projections turns the world into a mirror, uncomfortable, yes, but full of insight. Journaling is where shadow work starts to come alive. Set aside your filters and let the part of you that feels ashamed, angry, unlovable, or unseen write freely. No edits, no judgment, just truth. Let the voice of the part you usually silence speak. It might sound ugly or raw. Let it. That voice is not your enemy. It's the wound. And when you let it speak, you can begin to understand what it needs. But let's be clear, this isn't always safe to do alone. If you're working with trauma, especially developmental or relational trauma, therapeutic support isn't just helpful, it's vital. A trauma-informed therapist, depth psychologist, or somatic practitioner can help you navigate the emotional intensity of shadow work with grounding, context, and compassion. You don't have to face your darkness alone, and you shouldn't have to. Shadow work also requires clear boundaries with yourself. Don't force breakthroughs. Don't expect transformation overnight. Don't expect to dive in every day. Some days the most honest work is simply noticing a trigger without running from it, or writing a few words you weren't ready to say out loud. This is not a race. It's a return to wholeness, to authenticity, to the parts of you that were never meant to be exiled. And remember, safety isn't just about therapy or techniques. It's about how you relate to yourself while doing this work. Do you speak to yourself with harshness or gentleness? Are you pushing or are you listening? Are you trying to fix or are you willing to feel? The attitude you bring to your shadow determines how deeply you can meet it. Safe shadow work is about creating a stable container inside yourself and when needed with others, so the exiled parts of you finally feel safe enough to return. It's not about rushing to the light. It's about learning to hold the dark without fear. That's how integration begins, not with violence, but with quiet welcome. Your pain doesn't replay because you're broken or unlucky. It repeats because you're at a threshold ready to stop running from the parts of yourself that have been hidden in darkness for too long. Shadow work invites you to face your whole self, not just the polished version you show the world. It asks for courage, honesty, and compassion toward the aspects you feared or rejected. This journey isn't about sinking deeper into darkness. It's about reclaiming your wholeness piece by piece. When you finally meet your shadow with open eyes, without judgment or resistance, the cycle of repetition begins to dissolve. The wounds that once drove unconscious patterns lose their power. Healing doesn't come from denying the shadow, but from embracing it, integrating it, and living in truth. That moment of surrender is where real transformation lives. This is where your healing truly begins.